Up a post yesterday on Facebook that sort of sparked some healthy and not so healthy debate about high bankers. Now, the post was really simple. I was talking about a person's capacity for work and why I wouldn't now spend the same sort of money on high bankers as I did as early as I did in my prospecting career. A lot of people took this as that high bankers aren't valuable, which is not what I was talking about, and I think it raises some interesting questions. So let's talk about why I wouldn't buy a high banker straight off the bat if I was just starting again.
I have three high bankers. This is a high banker here. That there is a high banker, and that there is also a high banker. That is a cleanup sluice.
Chris, why do you have three different sized high bankers? Well, they all do different things. Well, they all do the same thing, but you can take them to different places.
This little thing is in high rotation at the moment because I can put it in a backpack and I can take it really far away, and it's faster than panning.
And if I have no running water to run a river sluice, that's a fantastic option.
On the opposite end of the scale, we've got that massive Keen. Now that is two people shoveling all day as hard and fast as they can, and it will keep up with them.
But there is just not very many spots that you can run a high banker like that.
And finally, we've got this, which is somewhere in between. Like I can take this reasonably far out, but not, have to spend a whole heap of time spoon feeding it like the small one.
So the thing about a high banker is simple. The high bankers are valuable because they allow you to process more dirt a lot more rapidly. The problem with a high banker, any high banker, is the bottleneck is usually you. So the bottleneck is your capacity to shovel dirt through it. And there's a few reasons why that becomes an issue when we get into the nuts and bolts of this. The first thing I have to mention, though, is that bottleneck has been intentionally put there by the government and the laws. Now, we could talk about laws in a different video. We're not going to do that today. The point is that the government in Victoria, where we're allowed to use high bankers, put a law in saying that you can use a high banker, but you have to feed it by hand, because they understand that getting someone to feed a high banker by hand limits their capacity to move dirt. Which neatly brings me to my point. Now, a high banker is a lot of extra work, and that's why I would now consider using a river sluice over 90% of the high bankers out there, except for this little green one here. That fits into a different category.
When you take a high banker out, you're not just taking this. This is the big unit. Like, look how freaking big this thing is. I know, Stephen, you're even complaining about it as I talk. This is a really big high banker. But you don't just take that into the bush, you've also got to take the pump. This is not light. This is a very big pump.
And you have to take fuel in for it, so you've got a fuel can.
Then you have all of these hoses. All of these hoses have to come in with you. Then you still need some kind of container, probably not necessarily that big, but you need a container to wash your concentrates out into, because the matting down here is going to produce a lot of concentrates.
And you still have to take in, your pans, your snuffer bottle, your shovel, your pick, your backpack that's got like your drinks and your food and all the incidental tooling you might need, such as like Allen keys and screwdrivers and blah, 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 blah. It's a lot of extra gear. You're not going panning. You're taking a piece of equipment into the bush. And even to walk a small high banker or a mid-sized high banker like this out into the bush, 100, 200 meters is a very difficult thing to do. Sure, there are ways around it. You can use a wheelbarrow, you can use a cart, but even those present problems. It's extra work. So when you're talking about someone who may have physical limitations on their energy levels, perhaps you're someone who is older, you don't have as much energy as what you did when you were younger. Perhaps you have injuries that you are dealing with that are long term. Maybe you have some kind of physiological genetic condition that limits your energy. Whatever it might be, the energy expenditure that you have to put in to run a high banker is significant. Now, I'm not saying a river sluice is going to get more gold than one of these high bankers, but if you're someone with limited energy and you have to spend, say, an hour in total dragging everything into the bush, setting everything up, then cleaning it all out and packing it all down, you might be better off taking just a couple of buckets and a river sluice into the bush, or a very small unit like this one down here, so that you can utilize the energy that you have available to you to its maximum capacity. Say you only get maybe 3 hours worth of energy time when you're up and physically able to dig. Well, do you want to use an hour of that time to set a piece of equipment up? And you may argue the point that because that you have set up a machine that can now process a lot more dirt than a river sluice, that you'd make up for that difference in that 2 hours. But I'm telling you now, when you're feeding a machine like that, you expend a lot of energy to the point where the next day, if you overdo it, you're not going to be able to do anything. You're going to be stuffed. It's literally digging a huge amount of dirt. Now, there are going to be manly men out there who are like, just harden up and do it. And I don't care. I don't want to hear your opinion about that, because it's not how it works. Not everyone is on the same level as you, and that's something important to recognize. You might not be at the level, or the fitness level, the capacity level to run one of these machines like someone else who has a fit, able body.
And beyond that, one of these machines is a couple $1,000s. Like that was, I think, like $650, and even this one over here was like $500.
And you still have to do things like add in your hose costs, your pump costs, your fuel costs, blah 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 blah. River sluice will cost you $100. Like $100, you might could spend $50 on, you know, some buckets or some shovels or something, and then you can spend the rest of the money that you saved on not buying one of these things to go traveling to somewhere that has really good gold, or somewhere you've always wanted to visit. There are options with money that don't there are options to get you more gold or to have a better time that don't involve buying things like this. And for the last time, I'm not saying don't buy one. By all means, do it. It's super fun. If it's legal in your area to do, you know, you can definitely clean up a lot more gold. And you know, there's a whole lot of stuff that I could talk about in terms of what makes a good high banker and the capacity for them to run. Just bear in mind that it's not what it looks like when you watch, say, my videos or someone else's videos. There are a lot of things that go into this that make it very difficult work. And I think people have got to stop looking at processing total capacity for the dirt and start thinking about how they can maximize their day energy wise. Because if you maximize your day, you're going to end up in a position where you'll probably come out with a similar, if not more, amount of gold than you would if you put your energy into something that's going to cost you dearly. I hope that makes sense. All right, guys, have a great day. I'm going to go do something. I don't know. Creek, maybe?